Hi there and welcome to Revise the Right Way with me, Mr. Bell. Today we're going to see the start of a new series of videos designed to be 5 minutes in length to get extra tips, hints and just quick revision when you need it. We're going to start today with a focus on young people in 1984, a quick passage analysis, and let's go. There was a trampling of boots and another blast on the comb as the children charged into the living room. Mrs. Parsons brought the spanner. Winston let out the water and disgustedly removed the clot of human hair that had blocked up the pipe. He cleaned his fingers as best he could in the cold water from the tap and went back into the other room. "Up with your hands," yelled a savage voice. So in the opening of this passage, we get Winston removing this clot of human hair that had blocked up the pipe. And I think that this is probably best described as a metaphorical representation of Winston, who he himself is clogging up the pipes which represents the party and the system. And eventually he becomes this nuisance which has to be removed and discarded. And when they do, it leaves it as him, as something which is worthless and broken. And then at the end of this page, we see the phrase savage voice, which is perhaps showing Winston's bias as thinking that anybody who agrees with the party or disagrees with himself is somehow inferior or maybe primitive and quite primal in their actions and their language. A handsome, tough-looking boy of 9 had popped up from behind the table and was menacing him with a toy automatic pistol, while his small sister, about 2 years younger, made the same gesture with a fragment of wood. Both of them were dressed in the blue shorts, grey shirts, and red neckerchiefs, which were the uniform of the spies. Winston raised his hands above his head, but with an uneasy feeling, so vicious was the boy's demeanour that it was not altogether a game. And so the passage continues by having this description of the boy being handsome and tough-loving, which is the antithesis of Winston, and also there's a similarity in this description to O'Brien, so he's both drawn towards these characters but also slightly cautious. And as we continue throughout this passage, we get lots of alliteration, repetition and sibilance. And sibilance here of small sister, usually sibilance is used to denote something which has negative connotations. It's maybe slightly sinister, and that kind of works here. So as we read this, the fact that she's replicating his actions is important. And hopefully it isn't lost on you that their uniform has some similarities. It's not exactly the same. He wears blue overalls, but it's similar to Winston's uniform, which is reinforcing that he's going to become this figure. The fact that he raises his hands above his head, he surrenders, is his default reaction. So all of this is foreshadowing what he's eventually going to do. And then the final quote where it says, "It was not altogether a game," has this echo in reality, as though Winston himself is playing this game that he just cannot win, like a rat in a cage. And if you know later on Room 101, yes, there's a link there. "You're a traitor," yelled the boy. "You're a thought criminal. You're a Eurasian spy. I'll shoot you. I'll vaporize you. I'll send you to the salt mines." Suddenly they were both leaping round him, shouting, "Traitor!" and "thought criminal," the little girl imitating her brother in every movement. So here, very briefly, I just want to talk about pronouns because the accusations that are being made are individual, you, I, rather than we and us, which suggests that there's an implied sense that individuals have power, which we know is ironic by the end of this text, but maybe Orwell himself is suggesting that might be the case. And as well as that, we have the repetition of Winston's fears of being called out as a traitor and a thought criminal, which in itself is the worst kind of thing that he can be exposed for. We know that those are things that he's currently doing, and therefore to be confronted even by a child is alarming, and you can see his reaction is intense. It was somehow slightly frightening, like the gambling of tiger cubs which will soon grow up into man-eaters. There was a sort of calculating ferocity in the boy's eye, a quite evident desire to hit or kick Winston, and a consciousness of being very nearly big enough to do so. It was a good job it was not a real pistol he was holding, Winston thought. And so here again we get that repetition, we get the sibilance, we get all of the kind of ideas that all of this is growing and escalating. This is very early in the novel, but there's a lot of projecting Winston's feelings, that calculating ferocity, which later on you're going to witness when we see O'Brien, when we see all of the eventual downfall of Winston and Julia. And that quite evident desire is ironic because eventually we know that the thought police saw it, that everyone knew that it was happening, and the real pistol in room 101 is not a pistol, it's a cage full of rats. Okay, so I think I stuck pretty much to the time limit there. If you enjoyed what you saw and you want to see more, please subscribe, like, comment below, and thank you very much for watching.